all for coming. I want to thank Liberty for being an amazing sponsor and our MBE champion and allowing us to put programs on like this to hear the perspective from businesses of color. So with that, I'm going to introduce,
Hold on, and let's take a pause. Go ahead, go ahead. I just want to turn off the music. It's one of those things until you start, you don't even hear it.
So I want to thank Good Life Productions for being our partner in this. We called them and said, hi, we have this idea. Would you be willing to host us? And they said, absolutely. So thank you, Julia, to you and your team for allowing us to be here today in this really cool, basically salon talk, which I think is different than anything the Chamber's done, at least on the Pacesetter side. And then my teammate, Julia, who is downstairs, making sure everyone knows where we are. I would be remiss if I did not thank her, who really did a lot of the logistics for this. So, and then again, thank you all for coming for our first event. And with that, I'll make a couple of introductions. First, Erika Gibson, who's the AVP and Director of Supplier Diversity at Liberty Mutual. Erika leads the advancement of supplier diversity at Liberty with a focus on developing and enhancing the strong pipeline of diverse supplier talent and connecting that pool of supplier partners into Liberty's supply chain. Erika has been with Liberty for a little over 2 years. Prior to joining Liberty in 2020, Erika worked at Hilton leading their supplier diversity, responsible sourcing, and marketing procurement functions. Erika is a seasoned professional with legal and procurement backgrounds and has worked in both direct and indirect sourcing. She holds a Bachelor of Arts in Political Science from James Madison University and an MBA from George Washington University and a Certificate of Diversity and Inclusion from Cornell. Awesome, thank you. And then next we have Julia Cruz, Principal and Executive Producer of Good Life Productions. Julia is a veteran television producer and broadcast journalist who co-founded Good Life Productions in 2005. As executive producer, Julia oversees all aspects of Good Life's projects from contact to completion. A former TV reporter and producer for Nesson and WCVB in Boston, Julia brings a wealth of knowledge in production, interviewing, script writing, and marketing to Good Life. I will also say, if your teams already have in-house production, they will also do editing for you.
Nice.
Julia has the uncanny ability to make every interviewee feel comfortable in front of the camera and gives each Good Life production that extra sparkle. Along with her business partner and husband, Neil Robert, Julia has helped grow Good Life into a busy, award-winning production company serving clients in New England and around the world, including Harvard, MIT, Grammy Award-winning singer and songwriter James Taylor, who was at annual meeting last year, Disney, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Mass, Boston Children's Hospital, Eastern Bank, and the Greater Boston Chamber of Commerce. She is an honors graduate of Syracuse University's Newhouse School of Communications and the former singer, band leader of the Boston disco funk band Booty Vortex.
Oh,
When
nice.
she's not working with Good Life's fabulous clients and staff, you can find Julia hiking, singing, and dancing with Neil and their 5-year-old son, Miles. And with that, I'd like to pass it over. Thank you all.
That's awesome. I feel like I have so much to say now. First of all, I moonlight as a karaoke artist. Grace can tell you that. I've won a few awards at Liberty. But so great to kind of be in this really cool space. I think we were talking about it a little bit earlier, and it reminds me of home. I'm from Richmond, Virginia, live in the DC area. So just kind of, could you tell us a little bit of background about like how you got here, the journey of Good Life getting here, and a little bit of background about yourself?
Sure. So my husband Neil, who is with our son today, and that's why he's the fourth member of the team that's doing his side. But we bought this house in 1999. We did not have a business. He worked in radio. He was a radio DJ. I was a TV reporter and producer for NECN. I'm not a sports. I mean, I like sports, but I don't broadcast for sports. So we bought this house. We were both doing our jobs, and when we decided that we thought it was time to move to something else and we wanted to start our own company, we did it right out of that room. Was our first room. You're sitting in our what used to be our living room. And so we started there, and as we started to get some more business, we actually started doing personal biographies and family history videos. That's where the Good Life name originated. But we started in 2005. It was the same year that YouTube started. So as video became more prevalent, We had a website, and companies started calling us and saying, can you film this? Can you make us a video? And so we pivoted because family videos were great, and they're wonderful projects, and we still do them. We just did one this past week for a couple who sadly both passed away, but that's, you know, we did a video. We still do them, but we don't do as much of that. We really do. We pivoted more to the business side, and we got involved with the chamber, and you know that just helped our business to really grow. So as the business grew and we started doing more business, we actually moved it upstairs and took over what were 2 bedrooms upstairs so that we would separate work life and home life. And then we also started hiring people as the business grew, so that helped, you know, to give them space and keep, you know, our personal space personal. And then when I got pregnant with our son in 2016, we realized we were not going to be able to keep that working, so we took over our tenant apartment and made that the office. So that was a really big move for us. And that's where it stayed until 2021. In 2020, like everyone else, we went remote. And, but virtually almost every space, I mean, that's been an office, that's been an office. Almost every room in the house has been part of Good Life at some point. We went remote in 2020 and more or less stayed that way. It's actually really nice, and I do welcome you all to Good Life, and thank you all for being here. It's wonderful to see people here and have people in the office again, because generally most of our filming happens on site. So our team, Jeremy and Harry right back there, they come here, they get the equipment ready, and we take it to the shoot. And so not a lot actually happens here anymore. Most everything is done on site. They both mostly work remotely, as do we, and we come back here together occasionally. So it's nice to have a little energy here again. But it's been a wonderful ability to have this space and to kind of rework it. It's helped us to be really nimble as a business, and you know, reconnoiter things as we need to. And it's just worked out really nicely, and it does have a homey kind of feel to it. That's all part of the vibe.
I love it. I love it. So I like how you talked about, you know, the office kind of being all over the house and everything that's brought you to this point. I guess if you have to look out for the next 3 to 5 years, where do you see the Good Life production going? Where do you think your next kind of steps are?
Sure. So we have, you know, really changed and just continued to develop and grow. And what's been really nice with Pacesetters is it's really opened us up. I mean, you know, the chamber in general has really connected us with so many businesses and really helped us to expand our client base. And certainly what we've seen more recently, especially with our new partnership with Blue Cross Blue Shield, is that getting in with the bigger companies really enables us to stretch our abilities and see what we can do. You know, generally we do videos, we do a lot of promotional videos, or we'll do tribute videos for award ceremonies or fundraising videos. But what we've been doing for Blue Cross Blue Shield is a big shoot. It's a one-time, you know, a few days to prepare, and we do the shoot, and then we're done. So it's just a different business model, truly, than, you know, what we do, which is a lot of content creation. So we're trying to pivot more and find, not necessarily pivot because we do like the videos that we do, but to find more of that kind of work where we can expand what we do. I've always been very conscious and cautious about growth because we are a small business. I think it's helped us to survive. We've gone through 2 financial crises in the time that we've been in business, and both times we were had this great momentum going, and then the economy went crazy. So, you know, I'm always conscious about that growth. We've been able to ride through because of our nimbleness and our small team, because we're not a huge team, and because we don't have to pay for office space and that kind of thing that can really affect you when the economy changes. It's really helped us. We've never had to lay anybody off. We've always kept busy, and we figured out how to make it work. So making those smart financial decisions as a business and choosing those kinds of clients that can help us do that, rather than choosing our projects based on the creative or interesting project, which might be great but might not be the best financial decision for the business. That's part of it. The other thing that I really have been focused on and trying to do as we look to expand our team is to bring more women on board. I am the only woman at the woman-owned business, and it's a little challenging in the field of production because it is heavily male-dominated in terms of videographers, but women are out there, and I just have to mine the right places to find the right people and bring them on board. So that's sort of in the 3 to 5 year plan. But kind of we want to move more into biotech because there's a big life sciences market here in Boston. We've done a lot of commercial real estate, has actually been a huge one for us with as much building that's happened in Boston over the last 10 years or so. It's made a huge business for us, and that's been really helpful.
Yeah. One of the things you said that sparked my, I was thinking about was you talked about getting creative with finding, talent and stuff. And that's something that we have to do as supplier diversity professionals, kind of get creative and figure out how to get, get our stakeholders to use diverse owned businesses. So I think it's a nice segue to the next question I wanted to ask you. And you kind of alluded to it a little bit by talking about your relationship with Blue Cross, but what in supplier diversity, it's difficult sometimes to break into that large business segment. And I'm happy to chat about this as well, because while I'm not on your side of the fence, I understand how it is to break the suppliers into it. What has been the challenges you've seen there, and maybe some ways that you've overcome those and had growth as it relates specifically to kind of using those supplier diversity programs as a platform or a jumping off point?
Yeah, I would say, certainly being a minority-owned business and a woman-owned business, getting your foot in the door is always the biggest challenge. Certainly when we were starting out it was, because once we get our foot in the door, we can prove ourselves. Yeah. That's the thing. Once we have that job and we have that opportunity and a chance to really show what we can do, then we're all set. I mean, we've honestly, and I knock on wood here, we've never had an issue there, once we get in the door. But it's just even knowing about the opportunities, and the businesses knowing about us, and that's again where Pacesetters is so wonderfully helpful because it does put us out there, and so that's a challenge number one. Is just getting your foot in the door, getting known. I understand why when you have a vendor, why would you do anything to change that vendor? But the truth is, what you don't realize is that there might be a vendor out there that is better than the vendor that you have. And I know it's easy, and it's like, I know it's a known quantity, I know what I'm getting with this. But you may get more for your money, you may get a better product, and you'll definitely get a fresh perspective. And I think that's a reason to sometimes make a change when a change isn't necessarily necessary. And so that's what I think we can really bring to it. And the challenge on our end is to just get out there and make the opportunity and listen to the procurement people and what your needs are. That's where we can help you think, outside the box and think of other ways that you can certainly be using video to help tell your story, hire new people, find the talent, raise money, whatever it might be. There are so many different uses for video that's what our job is to make you aware of that. And then, now that we've been doing this for so many years, it's easier for us to say, here's what we've got. We've worked for these people. And on your end, I think that's where if you feel like you're taking a chance, then it's just a matter of, vetting and making sure that, these other vendors that are the unknown quantity, who are they working with? Who do you know that maybe worked with them and that you can find out, what were they like to work with? And that can give you a little bit of more confidence if you're going to make this change and see how it goes. And I guarantee you 9 times out of 10 it's going to be fine. But it helps us so much to have that opportunity to prove what we can do.
Yeah, I think that's accurate. And I think just from our standpoint too, right? I think sometimes when maybe the resume isn't as long, right? You've been doing this for a while. So I think starting with a small project, right? I think that always gives the opportunity, so then you can say, all right, especially in supplier diversity, we have a budget that we kind of command. And so it's like, oh, let me get you on this little, couple $1,000 project here, right? See how that goes. So I'm always the testing ground, I found, for a lot of the vendors. And then I'm like, okay, now I put you out here, to folks. So I think starting small and then expanding so that you then build, because, right, you are about to do something for us. We found out about you all through Pacesetters, and that's been awesome. But you know, it's going to go well, right? And then once it goes well, right? Then once it goes well, then, you know, I can easily take that to our marketing teams or whatever teams that are using production. And so we can just continue to expand the relationship. So I think we just have to stay creative with it. And I've said that like 5 times now, but it's just a big theme for me. And I was mentoring another supplier diversity person the other day. And she's like, you're so creative. And I'm like, no, I have to be so that we can break these businesses in, right? Give them an opportunity to shine, like you said. And then once you have your foot in the door, that's all it takes. So that's awesome. The next thing I wanted to ask you, and you said a little bit about this too, just being a woman of color, how has that been for you overall? Like we talked about breaking into business, but just what obstacles have you seen? We talked a little bit earlier, y'all missed us, we were having a sidebar, but we were talking about hair. My hair is naturally curly, and I was like, I'm taking a big chance here by straightening my hair and coming to Boston without all of my products. But just things of that, right? Like, you know, things that people can visibly see. You talked about being a woman. What has that been for you in general, being a business owner as well?
Certainly the hair thing's always an issue. I was telling her a story. I used to be a TV reporter, and my news director at the time required me to straighten my hair. And it takes a long time for me to straighten my hair, and it was middle of summer, and I'm blow drying it straight, and it's frizzing as I'm blow drying it. And one day I walked into work, and I just had my curly hair, and he said, what's going on here? And I said, this is my hair. This is me. And unless you're going to pay a stylist to do this, I can't keep doing it. And at the time, you didn't see a lot of people with curly hair on TV. Now you see it, it's not a big deal so much. But, you know, I had to stand up there. As a woman, I will say it's getting taken seriously. As the business owner, I do own this company with my husband, but I am the majority owner. And often, maybe not too often, but anymore, but it has happened many times over the years where they just assume he's the one running the business, and he's not. Those guys are shaking their head. They're like, yeah, no. You know, he's the videographer, he's the editor, he's the creative director. There's a lot that he does, and I couldn't do this without him. But you know, I'm the one who's meeting with the clients and doing the proposals and making sure the projects are all running smoothly. That's my job. So we had a situation once where we were interviewed for a local paper, a business paper, and they were doing this article on us, and they interviewed both of us on the phone. They sent follow-up interview questions, which I answered. And when the article came out, there was not a single quote from me. And I was livid, having been a journalist. And I called up the reporter, and I called him out on it. And, you know, it's like you have to know your value. And you have to stand up for yourself and make sure that you are valued as you should be. So that, as a woman in this field, is always very challenging. So yeah, it's just it's so much about knowing your worth and knowing what you bring to the table, and then making sure that other people know that as well, because it's so easy for them to just look at him and talk to him, and I'm like, well, this is how things go, you know, and this is how we do it, and you know, trying to do it with a little bit of humor so that nobody feels, you know, too bad, but making them realize, you know, this is the reality, and you know, I have to be taken seriously because I deserve to be.
Yeah, I love that. I guess we talked about a little bit the creative ways that we can help you, but what are ways that you've seen that like large buyers, like all of us in the room, can support MBEs just in general? What do you think that could look like, and how have you seen it best modeled, and maybe a couple of examples that you can have to share with us so that we can start learning as well?
Yeah, I thought about this one a lot. You know, the thing, like I said, you know, just giving us that chance. That's thing one, and your concept of, you know, start small. Do something that, you know, we can just show you that we're for real. And you're not putting yourself out there, because that is obviously something, you know, you don't want to bring someone on board if it's going to be a big headache for you. Or make you, you know, not look like you're doing your job well. I totally understand all that. I would say certainly when we are given that chance, sharing information with us, kind of giving us that beginner's help, because we are, and this is more on a smaller business side, we're a small business, you know, we're not used to the big corporate world. While we work with corporate clients a lot more than we used to, it's sometimes we don't know your systems, and we don't know, you know, where we're supposed to be invoicing, or those little kinds of things that, you know, can just help us to do our job better. And I do find, the number one thing, it's communication. It's all about communicating. So when we meet with a client and it's a new client, we spend a lot of time in the early stages just really talking things through and going deep and understanding what it is that they're trying to accomplish with, this first project, but really overall. And so that really helps, and along the way, continuing to check back and being in communication. I think if you can do it, and it's so easy to do it nowadays, you don't have to rely on always getting a phone call or a meeting. It's just about, throughout the process, being in communication. For what we do, particularly because we're project-based, when we stop hearing from our clients, it makes it really hard for us to do our job. And we worry that, they have no idea that we have a huge full schedule coming up, and we haven't heard from them, we really need to finish this project. And at the same time, we don't want to be annoying our clients because we know you have 100 other things you're focused on, and the video might not be your priority. So sometimes it's just us, shooting a quick email and saying, hey, we haven't heard from you in a while, here's where the project's at, we do have this coming up, and just being, out there, putting it out there so that even if we're going to hold on this for a while, we know that, you know that, and everybody's good. Communication is number one.
I love that, because I feel like sometimes the being communicative gets lost, and I think a lot of times we just get busy and slammed. I know this past couple weeks has been insane as we've tried to put on this in-person event that we're about to have on Thursday, and those things get kind of put to the wayside. So I love that you gave that reminder. I do have a question for you. You called out specifically being a smaller business. How about payment terms and things like that? Because that's one of the things at Liberty that we've done is we've changed payment terms for small and diverse businesses. So if you're able to upload your certification or whatever that is, we'll pay you in net 10. Is that something?
Great.
I was going to say. I was just about to ask you. Is that something that is beneficial for you?
Yeah, I know other small businesses, and I know particularly in the construction world, because we have a lot of clients there, I know that's really challenging because they have a lot of people they have to pay, and they're putting out for materials and they're doing stuff like that. So if it's 90 days, it's really can be challenging. Yeah. That can always be helpful. I mean, thankfully, we run a pretty tight financial ship, so we try not to get into those situations where, if the payment doesn't come in, we're not paying the bills or paying payroll. But at the same time, it's hard. When we started getting bigger name clients, and I will not name the client, it was like, we got this great job with this great big name, and then we weren't getting paid, and we had to keep, banging the drum, where is it? And it's not like we were hurting for it, but we did the job, and we just needed to be paid. And I know in terms of me, I'm always juggling 100 things, so sometimes I'm like, did they pay us? I think they paid us. I don't know. And then you go back and you go, oh my God, they haven't paid us yet. Yeah. So yes, those kinds of things can definitely help and are more than appreciated, especially when you're starting. I think, now we're more established, so, we have a bit of a coffer. But, when you're just starting and you're going job to job and that job is the only job you have until you finish it and look for the next job, it's hugely important and helpful. The one other thing that I will say that has come up in recent years, and it's very insurance-based, is there are these requirements. Because we're a video production company, we're shooting at different buildings, and we always have to have a certificate of insurance. And all these businesses have sprung up recently where it's automated, and the companies are hiring them to do these automated checks and make sure their vendors have all the right certificates of insurance and all the right, and they are crazy. I mean, it's all automated, so it's you do this and this doesn't work, and even when we've given the paperwork, it doesn't, it doesn't compute or whatever. And I have ended up spending far too many hours trying to make this stuff work when it's sometimes it's a client that we're not even doing a job for. So it's it's all these little side businesses that are kind of doing these things that can be just challenging when you're dealing with a whole lot of other things. That's more from a small business, I'd say, side.
No, that's spot on, actually, because we've started to look into we have a third-party risk kind of management function, which sounds very similar to what you're describing. And our small businesses have come back to us, and they're like, do you want to do business with us? Because we don't have a server that, and we're like, what? It's the automated question. And so that's one of the things that I've been tasked with exploring. So I might chat you up sidebar, and anybody else who's had success with that, right? Because we want to make sure that obviously the risk and concerns are real, but is there a better way to, give that information out to ensure that we aren't doing something that's hindering you all? Like you said, we don't even have a job. Maybe it's just a yearly check because you're you're a third party that we do business with.
I'm in the system, so.
So yeah, no, I have to circle back with you on that because I've been getting some complaints and they're just like, what are you guys doing? And we're just so excited. We've rolled out this new system. And they're like, yeah, this is not a one size fits all. So it's a challenge for all of us to keep in mind as we continue to do business and make sure that we're making it a diverse ecosystem that sets up our MBEs for success. Thanks for that one. I was going there in my mind, but I was like, I'm not going to say that. And you were like, here's another thing. So I like it. The other thing I wanted to ask you, and you've hit on it a bit because you talked about, having a tight ship and all that, but just how have you weathered the storms? Like, what are some key things that you've done to sustain your business over the years, to make sure that you continue thriving? Maybe this building is proof of that, but like, what else have you done that you haven't shared or that you want to elaborate on to just sustain business over the years?
Yeah, I'd say certainly having a small team. Like I said, I'm very conscious about growth. Part of why my husband and I started Good Life Productions is we both worked in very stressful fields where we had to be on and we were working a lot, and we both kind of wanted a good life. And so when you're in broadcasting, you're working every holiday, everything, and we wanted to kind of find some balance. And actually when we started the company, I was singing in a band and running a band and going out and gigging every weekend, and it was such a wonderful balance between the two worlds. And so that was kind of what we were going for. And as it has grown, we've always been careful not to grow too much, because what happens is you have all these people suddenly you have to manage, and what you enjoyed about doing it as a technician, I was an interviewer and a writer and a producer, and suddenly you're, just doing proposals and, writing payroll and stuff like that. And you're like, wait, what I loved about it, I'm not even doing. So while I want to grow as a business, I don't want to grow so fast that and I've always just been nervous that it grows so fast and then you can't support all this growth that you have. So we've kept it pretty tight by keeping a small core team and then relying on freelancers throughout, and whether it's an animator or additional videographers when we have a busy season and we've got a lot of projects going on. We've partnered with another production company that's a smaller production company, and they're getting going, so they love that we're helping to find work for their guys. And so it's actually worked out really nicely. That's helped us to be really nimble and get through those storms. And then it's finding new things. When the pandemic hit, we no longer could film in person. We couldn't go to the offices. The offices were closed. No one was there. But we found that a lot of our clients needed to rely on video more because they were trying to do internal messaging, or they were a college and people couldn't come to the college to do tours, so they had to do a virtual tour, show a video of what was going on. Chamber, you guys used us a ton for messaging, and even James Taylor, he had just released a new album and he could not go on tour to support it. So suddenly they were giving us all kinds of social media stuff to put out, and old concerts that they wanted to reboot. And so finding those ways to work with our clients, we put out a message to our clients and said, we have years of video that we've already captured for you. How can we repurpose that? Let's think of ways that we can repurpose what we have. And then we found this remote remote filming platform called Open Reel that uses an iPhone or a smartphone, and you download an app, and I give you a code, and then I'm on my laptop, sitting in my room, interviewing, putting up a teleprompter. I can adjust the focus, and I can adjust exposure and do all these things remotely. And while that was really useful during the pandemic, even now that we're back in person, our clients love it, especially the C-suite levels, who they're really busy. They don't have time for a whole crew to come in and take up half the day just to film this one address that they need to do for something. And so we do it remotely. And it costs them less, it takes up less time, it's super convenient, and it's been a game changer for us. We don't use it as much as we did during the pandemic, but we still use it, and it's a great thing to have, because it also just allows us to incorporate, certainly our clients who are national, if they have people in other states, we can just do it that way, and it's not having to either send us out there to film people or hire a local crew. It's all just seamless and really easy. So it's just it's being creative.
I was
That's what
gonna
you
say
gotta
it.
do.
It was
You
in my
gotta be
mind.
creative
Yeah.
and figure these things out, and then that kind of helps you ride the tougher times.
Yeah. And so I noticed the theme of being creative, but also too, like you said, keeping your team small and then being able to scale with freelance. So I just think something good to keep in mind as we are counseling, small businesses and they come to us. I know I get that question a lot when I'm mentoring, and they say, well, I want to scale. And I'm like, are you ready? And it also makes me think about, Oprah always makes her list of like whatever, right? And then folks get on the list and they can't fulfill the orders because it's like, Oprah put me on the list and
Right.
now I have a gazillion clients and stuff. So being conscious of the growth and making sure that it's happening in an organic way. So I love how you've been very focused on like, I don't want to get too big too quickly, and I want to just make sure that I pace that in a nice way. So I love that. Those are really good tips for us to think about also as we're giving counsel. So I guess the last one, I don't know where we are with timing. The last one I wanted to ask you, this is my favorite one right here, so I can't wait to hear your answer. But how have you, as an MBE and as a woman-owned business as well, gone about cultivating relationships? You talked a lot about your relationships with Pacesetters and with all the other organizations here. But how have you managed that, and how have you prioritized maybe certain relationships over others, or what's been your approach there?
Sure. I'd say because we are a small business and because I'm a social person, it's really about the personal. It's those little personal things. You go to networking events, you meet people, you shake hands, you say, here's what we do, you give your pitch. But it's when you're working with someone, not just going down the business road, finding out a little bit more about that person, just in the casual conversation. People like working with us because we're kind of, easy to get along with, and, we're not, I don't want to say too artistic, but sometimes you get, you get the artists. I always say there's these two different kinds of video production types, and there are the people who are artists and they have this idea and they have some amazing creative ideas, but sometimes they get too focused on that, and so they're not thinking about the client. We always say the client reserves the right. It's their video, whatever they want, even if it's something we don't necessarily agree with. We can give our counsel and move on, but it's making that experience good for them, and then staying in touch with a little something here and a little, hey, how you doing? Or, just checking in. Or, I noticed you guys got whatever award. Or, just those little things make a difference. And it's cultivating that over years. And I think that is why most of our clients are clients we've had for, 8, 9, 10 years. I mean, we've been working with the clients with the chamber since 2009. And we've seen it through many, many different groups of people, and it's nice that you do keep coming back to us. But I think it's something about, we're easy to work with. We're a small group, and you're getting me. Most often you're getting me or you're getting Neil. We're known faces. We're not always changing, and honestly, it happens. It just happened the other day. We're doing a shoot this week for the wind companies, and I gave them the list of the crew, and they said, what, no Harry? Harry's not going to be there? They're so disappointed because they like us, and that's a big part of it, is just making the experience good. Our tagline is high production values, happy clients, and that's really what we go for. It should be fun, otherwise what's the point, Yeah. We really try to do that, whether it's just a little something here or going to the event, that happens. Unfortunately for me, it happens less and less because I have to balance being a working mom. But when we show up at the events where the videos play, it's always kind of a nice thing. It's nice for us to see how the room enjoyed the video or how it went over. And it's nice for the clients to, to see that we care enough to follow it through. So it's just those little things that make a big difference.
I love that. And I like how you talked about it from like an established point of view. I would just say for folks breaking in, polite persistence also, like following up with us, right? Because then when I think, who are we going to use for this? Who keeps emailing me every, blah, 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 it kind of keeps it top of mind.
Squeaky wheel.
So, yeah. But it's a good, again, polite persistence, but just keep following up with us. So I think that's it. I was trying to remember, it's been a long time since I've done one of these in real life, like not on the internet. So thank you all for helping me out here. And you've been easy. I was like, maybe she can interview me instead.
Oh, no. I knew when we did our Zoom, I was like, this is going to be really easy. I know we can just chat. It'll be great.
Yeah, so I guess we're opening up for questions. Any questions from anyone?
Is there anything throughout your career you go back and either like reassure yourself or change or anything that you find to be like a pivotal moment?
Oh, that's an interesting one. Let's see. Well, yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, pivotal moment, I will say, pivotal moment number one was the day that James Taylor's assistant reached out to us. And it was like a friend of a friend who was a celebrity assistant and knew someone, and I mean, those things that happen. And so she connected us to do, no joke, we were just doing a photo album of some like tour of NASA that James had taken the whole band on a tour of NASA, and they needed pictures, and I was like, okay, sure, I love making those photo books. And I did like literally Shutterfly photo book, and she went on our website and she said, oh wow, you guys do video. I have been taking all these videos of James, and I've been thinking about doing something with it. And we sat at that table for probably 4 hours, like going over video and doing stuff, and I thought, well, this could be the start of something good. And it really made a big difference, you know, just to be able to say James Taylor's your client, let alone being able, we filmed his concerts at Fenway Park, and we've gone to his home studio out in Western Mass, and, you know, highlight of my career as an interviewer was being able to sit down with him and interview him for this piece they were trying to put together about him writing Sweet Baby James. I think it was an anniversary of the song, and I mean, just sitting there and talking to him, and just, you know, I sat at his piano and I was like, oh my God, it's James Taylor's piano. And at the same time, he's like the most wonderful, down-to-earth, sweet person you could imagine. So, I mean, those kinds of things, when those moments happen, I can't think of anything, honestly, I can't think of anything I would change, which is really good to think that way. Yeah. You know, I think those are the pivotal moments. Certainly, I remember one of actually my favorite highlights was the 2019 annual meeting with the Chamber. It was the year the theme was All In, and it was really the power of women in business. And so I had the opportunity to interview all of these wonderful, successful women around Boston and tell their stories and hear what they had been through and how they got to it. And we filmed the event that year, and it was fun. It was just one of those like, 2020 is going to be great moments.
Oh, we all felt that way, didn't we?
We're so ready to just skyrocket. But, you know, now it's 3 years later, and honestly, I'm feeling the same way. So that's good, and let's hope we don't have another massive global crisis.
What makes a project or a contract potentially not worth it for you to pursue?
Ooh, that's an interesting one. Sometimes it's the expectation of the client. You know, sometimes we'll get someone who'll come to us and they'll say, you know, here's what we're thinking about doing, and they'll send all these videos of like, this is what we want it to look like, and then this is what their budget is, but they're thinking, you know, really big, and you can just kind of tell that it's going to be hard to meet those expectations. And I don't want to quash their wonderful vision, but it's the education part of it. It's really helping to educate our clients as to what goes into doing a video, and how, you know, what the reality is about that and what it costs. And that's why I am always very upfront with costs. I don't hide anything. I personally don't like getting nickel and dimed and not realizing what it was going to cost me up front. You know, I don't think it's fair to bring someone in thinking a certain thing and then, oh, whoops, here are all the add-ons. So I'm really upfront about that. I think it just helps the relationship overall. Yeah, I'd say that's probably the biggest. It's just it's the expectation. You know, I hate turning down work, and so generally what I do, we have smaller clients, individuals or families who'll come in and they'll want to do things. And if we're in a really busy season, you know, I feel terrible turning them down. So what I generally do is I refer them to somebody else, because I'm still helping them. I'm not just saying, I don't have time for you. You know, like, I don't think that's right. And they'll remember, hopefully, that they, you know, weren't totally shut down. But I'll be pretty upfront with them. You know, well, this is our business and it's what we do, and it, you know, we're at this level where we can't just take on a little job, unless it's family, and then you just bite the bullet and do it. But you know, that's a big thing. But it's really about still helping them, even when we can't do the job for them. It's making sure that they feel like they were at least taken care of. I'll refer them to Emerson. I'll often say, you know, they're great student videographers looking for work, and you just need someone to just film this, and you don't need to pay a few $1,000s for it. You know, give a young person a chance and save your money, and you'll probably get some good quality work. So there are always ways to kind of keep people happy and help them without, having to take a loss yourself.
How do you balance work and family?
There is no balance. Karen, Karen Kaplan, that I will always remember her saying that. There really is no balance. You can try to make yourself believe it. It's called juggling. I'm a very good juggler, but it's stressful and it's very hard to do that. Especially with a young child. I mean, my son's almost 6, and things happen and things go on, and you want to be there for it. I'm super fortunate because we were here. That was his playroom. And we were working downstairs, and it was great to just be able to be here. I'm very fortunate that way. I'd have to be in an office in some other town. So I had that time with him, and now he's in school, and it's always a juggling act. It's why there's only one of us here today, because it takes a lot. These guys will tell you, that Neil and I were not on the shoot together until about 2 weeks ago, when one of our clients, in advance, said, "I really want you both here. Can we make this work?" And I, managed to get my sister to stay and watch our son for a couple of days because we had to go, on location to do it. And, it doesn't happen very frequently. And it was great. We actually had a great time. It was fun to be on a shoot with him again, but it's really challenging. It's one of the hardest things that I've, ever tried to do. And to just find the time for anything other than working and taking care of your family. And, I honestly didn't have a chance to get my nails done because I was like, oh no, I have this event, I should get my nails done. But it just, something's got to give. And unfortunately, and this is my own character and my own personality, that's what I learned from my mom. I'm the youngest of 7 kids, so she never had any time to take for herself. And so that's hard. I'm trying. I'm so conscious. I'm like, I follow Jay Shetty, and I'm trying to think like a monk and, bring some of that balance back to my life. I do meditate every day, and that certainly helps from me losing it completely. But it's a challenge. It really, truly is. But I wouldn't give it up for anything. I do hope at some point I can, step away, certainly as he gets into, his teenage years and he probably won't want me around at all at that point. But, I want to be there more for him, and I want to make sure I'm here for the business. So it's just juggling both. I don't have a good answer. But if anybody else does, feel free to share it, because I'd love to know.
No, you're spot on. You're spot on with that. Just so you know, on the way here, I have my technology. We're talking about that, right? How it's enabled things, and Grace knows on my team. Sometimes I just stalk my children, and I just look at them through the baby monitor that's online.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, she's awake now. Just can stalk them a little electronic stalking. Yeah. Any other questions?
I have one. So it's for both of you, because you talked about referrals. So how important are referrals on both sides? So one, as a major corporation, being able to say, hi, other corporate, I've worked with this company, you should too. And hi, who have you worked with? How important is that network? And then for you, Julia, I guess also the flip side is, hi, I've worked with this freelancer, other corporate work. Can you talk about the power of referrals and, how that works?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I mean, I can jump in first. For me, that's the first question I get asked by my stakeholders. They're like, have they done insurance before? What company, who have they worked with? So that is major for us. Is if we can hear another insurance company did business with them, we'll lead with that. And we're like, well, actually, if they worked with so-and-so. And so networking and the referrals are huge for us. The other thing I would say too, we don't mind giving them, and we don't, right? So we'll give them, we expect them, and we started an insurance peer group, honestly, to collect that feedback, because especially in the claims area, for us, it's super difficult to find these types of things. I would say it's much more easier and more so marketing, those categories, professional services, things like that. That's more easy for me. I don't know if you all can relate with that, but the very specific claims area, I'm like, who can do auto, that's this, that, to get all of that information. So referrals are major for us. Like I said, we started a whole industry group just to get them. That's not the only reason, but let's be real, that's the majority. That's the reason why we started it, so yeah.
Yeah, and I would say on our end, the majority of our business comes from referrals, because people have a good experience working with us, they like the end product, and so if someone says to them, hey, who did your video? That's where we're getting, the majority of our business. We find other avenues. we've tried, different marketing campaigns, things like that, but nothing works quite like the power of a referral for us. And then, yes, in the same way, like I said, I'm happy to, refer the jobs that I'm sure we're not, it's too much or not enough for us to do, but these freelancers that we work with, I'll say they need a videographer, you want to take on that job. Sometimes I'll do it through us, depending on what the client, who the client is and how, what the potential is there. But, I'm happy to do that. In fact, even the photographer that's going to be there, yeah, she's one of our main freelance photographers, because we do photography, but it's not a huge thing. Sometimes we shoot it ourselves. But for things like that, that's where we'll definitely, and we know you can trust this person because we've worked with this person. I'm not going to just, refer to someone I've never heard of before. Yeah, it's hugely important. It's hugely helpful.
Can I just add to that? So I'll speak from the perspective of an internal referral with respect to Julia. So Julia doesn't even know this story. I had worked with Julia for the Pacesetters video back in 2018. And so I was excited. I said, oh, I'm going to my internal communications team, and I'm going to try to, promote Julia's business. And so when I went to the internal communications team, several of the individuals on that team had worked with Julia in past lives. And so I was like,
you're kidding me.
Some allies. Good, right? So we're going to try to get her in. We're going to try to get her in. And so they were very familiar with Julia and your husband, actually.
Right, Neil and Jay had worked together at BZ.
And Mike Buckley, right?
Oh my gosh, Mike Buckley! I didn't even know that. Wow.
Yes, exactly. And so that helped, just even having that connection. And so even though it took 5 years to get, Good Life Productions into Blue Cross, it was just kind of the power of those relationships, and even the internal referrals of people who worked with them in past lives. So the referral, the power of the referral is really important, and the connection and the relationship building as well.
Yeah, and on our end, patience, because you never know where those little, you meet someone somewhere and something, and it takes a few years to, make it happen, but eventually it happens.
I love it.
I think another thing that was great with Pacesetters, we had Pacesetter Awards, and you guys sent out a highlighted list of who was there, and that's how we got Good Life Productions for Thursday, because I was like, hey, the Urban Grape is on the list. They're a diverse-owned business in Boston, and then Good Life was doing the video and production that day, so I was like, okay, Erika, we already have this list. It's already curated. We're going there,
Yes.
right? So that's how we're doing business with you guys moving forward. So things like that, like Pacesetters highlighting that in that email, like, hey, this is who we worked with, it's definitely something that we would take back at Liberty and do the same when we are doing events.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'll just say one last thing too. Also providing an opportunity for diverse businesses to work together. Like, so again, to your freelance example, or using them through, you hiring them and then using them through you all. That's been major for me in previous lives as well. Sometimes maybe there's a capability that like one person has and the other one doesn't, and so they get together and then they're able to bid on like bigger things together. So I found that anytime I can host very natural networking opportunities, people find each other and then they can kind of work best together and then help support us, which is always nice.
Yeah, and that happens to us. We get calls, fairly frequently from agencies, or, they are trying to bid on a big project and they need the video partner there because they don't have that. So how can we pull this together? Yeah.
All right, well, with that, I want to thank you all for coming. I'd like to thank Erika and Julia for your conversation, for Good Life for filming. I realized that I said, I'm going off script, and we're filming this for posterity, so good job me. But thank you all for being here, and a round of applause for these two awesome women.